It happened, YouTube. I finally finished Witcher 3, at least the story for the base game and both expansion packs. I'm heartbroken, I'm distraught, I'm upset, but let's talk about it. Let's give my final thoughts on Witcher 3. Now, you probably could label this as a review. We've already reviewed Witcher 3 on the channel, but that was mostly just talking about the base game. I was playing through Hearts of Stone at the time, hadn't even touched Blood and Wine, had it downloaded, but hadn't actually fucked with any of the quests, stories, nothing like that. I almost didn't want to do this video because it is damn near similar to a video I've already done, which is the review, but it's like, man, this game deserves it, man. I picked this game up in 2015, several months down after it came out, but I picked it up in 2015 and been playing it this whole time. Been playing it for, like 2.5 years or so now, and I've finally done everything story-wise, and I'm just like, I didn't want to do this video, but I was like, it's deserving, dude. Witcher 3 is one of the greatest games ever, in my opinion. And I didn't really make any videos about this, like, ever. I've made maybe 3 or 4 Witcher-related videos on my channel, because back in 2015 and most of 2016, it was all Fallout content on my channel. That's like all I was doing was Fallout 4 content, and really just Fallout-based content, and so I wasn't in the Witcher 3 circle. I picked up the game. Actually, it's kind of a funny story. I don't think I've ever talked about this on the channel. Whenever I went to Vintage Stock, I don't know if you all have Vintage Stock, states or countries or whatever, but I went there and I was looking around for games, and I was actually going there to pick up Elder Scrolls Online, because I know a lot of people hate on the game, but it's like, it's an Elder Scrolls game, it's an MMO. Playing an MMO on console was a cool concept to me, so I was there to pick up Elder Scrolls Online. They did not have it. They had the case, the dude couldn't find the game, so I was like, you know what, I've heard good things about Witcher 3, and I picked that up instead, and my god, am I fucking happy I did that. And I truly believe the reason why I love this game so much is the journey, is the, 2.5 year journey or whatever I've been on playing Witcher 3. And that's not to say if you just played the game outright, from start to finish with the expansions, that it wouldn't be a good experience as well. But because I've been on the journey of playing Witcher 3 with this one character, this one save file, this entire time, I think that makes the game bond with me more. And I was legitimately sad to finish Blood and Wine because it's over, man. Like, there's a lot of side content to do. There's, like, question marks on the map which indicate locations you haven't found. There's plenty of that. They're not always in-depth locations, but there's still a lot of stuff to do. A lot of side quests I haven't completed. But it's just like, the story's over, man. I finished the main story on the base game. I finished the main story of Hearts and Stone expansion. And now I finished the main story in Blood and Wine. And, like, it was such a fucking good game experience, man. It's gotta be, like, I can't think of a better gaming experience that I've ever had. I'm not saying Witcher 3 is necessarily my favorite game. These days, I would have to say that Witcher 3 is probably my second favorite game of all time. Of course, Final Fantasy VII is number 1, but goddamn, it's hard not to say that this one is my favorite game too. Like, the lore, the characters, the story, the world, the looting system, the leveling system, the skill system, the abilities or whatever you want to call them. An in-depth, like, side content with, like, the Gwent and everything like that. Like, everything about this game is so good. There is negatives. I talked about that in my review, so go check that out if you haven't seen the review. There is some negatives to the game here and there. There's bugs and glitches, things that aren't even fixed to this day, but, like, my god, like, the positives of this game far outweigh the negatives. I listed several negatives in my review, but it's still, like, I would rate this game like a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10, man. And really, the only negative that bothers me is, like, the bugged or glitched quest. When you can't complete a quest, that's the only thing that actually really bothers me. Some of the negatives I mentioned in my review video were, like, some fall damage stuff. Like, the controls are kind of weird at times where, like, your character will run off a cliff and fucking kill you because of fall damage. Some enemies can, like, 1 or 2 shot you at times. Like, little things like that bother me, but they're not the biggest deal. I can look past that. I can play past that. But when you cannot complete a quest that's, like, essential to certain things, it bothers me. Because with Hearts of Stone, there's, like, a side quest that has to do with a bunch of new weapons and armor from the expansion, and you have to collect all these diagrams, and this dude from, like, another land will decipher them for you so that you can craft them. Thing is, though, the quest is bugged, and it happened for a lot of people because I looked it up online. It's just like this chest you gotta loot, and the chest, you just can't loot it. It won't open up. You can't find the diagram in the chest, and that's all it fucking is, but that sucks, dude, because it ruined a little bit of that expansion for me because I can't fuck with any the new really good weapons and armor. At this point in the game, they'd be weaker than what I am anyways, but still. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the expansions, mainly because I couldn't talk about them in the review, hadn't finished Hearts of Stone, and didn't even have Blood and Wine downloaded at the time. So let's talk about that. A little bit of a spoiler warning, I suppose, in case you guys haven't played this. The story was good. It was actually really good. It started out slow. It's kind of generic. You're just, like, fucking with, like, bandits and nobodies, and then it just ramps up, and you start fucking with, like, a god, essentially. This guy right here, Gontran Dim, otherwise known as Master Mirror or the Man of Glass, he was a throwaway character from the very beginning of Witcher 3. I did not recognize him. Geralt in the game recognizes him, but I did not until I started a second file while I was waiting for Blood and Wine to download. He's literally in like the first town at the beginning of the game when you're looking for Yennefer and Ciri. You talk to him, and that's it. You never see him again, and he ends up being essentially a fucking god in this expansion. And that's one of those small details that I like. This miscellaneous character that you wouldn't think like twice about ends up being an important character in one of the expansions. It was fucking awesome.
Looking for a woman.
Like everyone.
Next, we have Olgierd von Everec, who seems to be the main antagonist, because you don't really know who's the bad guy between Olgierd and Gonsrodim. You decide that for yourself, or you find out, whatever the case, of course, because you have choices. You can decide the ending. His story is very tragic and full of heartbreak. His story is actually why it's called Hearts of Stone. I wasn't really sure of what to think of him at first, but this one scene right here sold the expansion for me, and sold him as a character for me.
Well struck, Witcher. You win.
So that's just some of the characters from the expansion that I really liked. The expansion itself was great. As I mentioned before, the story was really good, really tragic and dark. It added a lot of new weapons, enemies, armors, things like that. It didn't add a new map, but it expanded on one of the maps, which was kind of an interesting twist from what I'm used to with DLCs. Generally speaking, if you're going to add a new area, you might as well just add an entire new map, but they actually expanded on one of the main maps from the base game, which I thought was kind of fucking cool. Now, onto the Blood and Wine expansion. This actually starts out with a Witcher contract you get in one of the base game maps, and then you travel with a group of knights to the land of Toussaint. I think that's how you say that. Your goal is to figure out what this monster is and inevitably kill it, and they call it the Beast of Beauclair. And of course, the story unravels from there, and you figure out what it is, who the beast is. You get to, of course, decide the fate of a lot of characters by the end of the expansion. Two of my favorite characters in this expansion are Detloff and Regis. Regis is the one on the right. He's an old friend of Geralt's. I don't know if he's from like the previous games or maybe some of the novels or books or whatever. And Detloff, of course, is the one on the left. He actually ends up being the Beast of Beauclair, and they are both vampires. And these aren't some sparkly bullshit vampires like in Twilight. In Witcher, vampires are fucking strong as hell. They can take on hundreds of men at once. There's a really badass scene after you've already fought Detloff for the first time and learned that he was a vampire. He comes to the castle as a friend of Regis. And you sit down at the table of the queen who hired you to kill him. And Geralt and Detloff are staring each other down through the entire conversation because, of course, you as the player know who he is, and so does Regis, but nobody else at the table does. It was just this really intense scene that stuck out to me from this expansion. Now, by the end of my story, and I don't know how much of this happens regardless of choices, there's a really cool vampire fight between Detloff and Regis, because ultimately, Regis decides to side with you because y'all are old friends. We'll take a look at it real quick.
Let us be done with this.
bit of a longer watch, but I thought it was really badass scene. One of my favorite scenes from the game, and it really hyped you up for the boss fight with Deadlock, which was one of the hardest boss fights in the entire fucking game. I raged for quite a bit before I finally beat it, because he can like two-shot you. Now, as for the expansion itself, of course, it adds another map for you to search, a whole other map that's about half the size of the Novigrad Velen map, and it's about the size of the Skellige map, if you're just talking about the land and not like the ocean surrounding the islands and everything like that. Naturally, of course, the expansion adds new enemies, weapons, and armor, but also added this mutagen system that allows you to equip more skills, which was one of my complaints if you guys watched my review, where, you know, by the end of the game you can only equip about 16 skills. Well, this mutagen system has its own kind of skill tree. There's not a whole lot to it, maybe like 10 or 15 skills, if that. And by researching these skills, it allows you to equip more skills from the previous skill tree, like I think 4 more. So by the end of it, you can equip 20. Not a whole lot more, but it is something, so I was glad they did that. Something very unique with this expansion is as you progress the story, you eventually get your own estate called Corvo Bianco. You come across it through the questing and everything, and eventually the queen gives it to you, so you have your own place. And you can improve it, because it's kind of run down. You can decorate and furnish the inside of the house. You can buy a stable for your horse. You can improve the garden. I think you might be able to do something like the wine cellar below everything. You can build an armory table and a grindstone so that you can improve your weapons before you go out on a quest. And this was very unique because in the base game, there's nothing like this. You didn't have any houses. You couldn't own property. You couldn't improve the property, nothing like that. There was just these chests called stashes that you could store items, and that was kind of it. So this was unique to the entire game because there's nothing like it. And this expansion offers about 30 hours of content. It's bigger, this expansion for The Witcher 3 is bigger than most games that you play. And Hearts of Stone 2 added like 10 to 20 hours or so. Like, these expansions are the size of fucking games, man. And that's just a testament to how good CD Projekt Red is, man. They're willing to build expansions for Witcher 3 that are the size of full games. Like, it's fucking wild. This game is so worth the purchase. Even now, like, the base game's like, I think $40, and you can get, like, the complete edition for $50. So $10, you get Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine. And it is absolutely worth every dollar. $50 for this game with both expansions is a fucking steal. It's a bargain. I highly recommend it. If you purchase a new copy of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, you will have a thank you letter in there from CD Projekt Red, thanking you for spending your hard-earned money on their game that took them 3 years to make. There's also a thank you after beating the base game in each expansion, which is one of the most wholesome things I've ever heard of, man. Like, it's one thing to thank the player after the credits roll and they finish the game. A lot of game studios do that, but to actually have a physical letter inside the game case thanking the player for purchasing your game, I don't think I've ever heard of that. It just goes to show you how passionate they are about this game, and it shows in the final product. This is one of my favorite journeys ever when it comes to gaming. It's one of my favorite gaming experiences, and I'm actually sad that it's over. Obviously, there's the option of another playthrough or doing a new game plus and like trying out different scenarios, ending quests differently, things like that, but I actually feel satisfied. And it's nothing against the game, I just don't feel like I need to do another playthrough because I actually enjoyed the first one so much. For now, I'm just going to continue on this file and try to complete the game 100%, discover every location, finish every quest. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my final thoughts on The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. It was a bit longer than I planned on that being, but it's whatever, man. I felt like this game deserves all the time I spent into this video. Like I said previously, one of my favorite gaming experiences. It's like a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 for me. I couldn't possibly recommend it to you more. It's every bit worth your purchase. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Turn on notifications. Follow me on Twitter at @the-david. Links to my social networks are in the description. And in the outro, later guys.
Give me forever for a while, quit acting like a baby, or at least less like